Hey, thanks for being here today. This is Fight Day here at One Church, and I'm actually recording this message in the gym that I've done most of my training for the fight. In fact, over my shoulder here is a heavy bag that I've hit probably 1,000 times, and then over this shoulder is another bag that I've hit and probably missed 1,000 times. But we are just really excited about what's going to happen tonight. And I've chosen to record this video beforehand and to play it at church because today I'm going to do my best to try to rest and do those type of things at home so that I have as much energy as I can. Actually, when I preach and teach on Sundays, I kind of have these shots of adrenaline, and by the end of the services, I'm kind of wiped out. I go home and take a nap, and I didn't want to be wiped out today. I wanted to have plenty of energy, so I'm home kind of resting and getting ready for the day. But man, this is a very exciting time. It's a huge week. And this week has been nuts, okay? It's been crazy. If you've been here the last couple of weeks, we've been showing videos and promotion and printed up signs and yard signs and cards and everything promoting this fight between myself and Jimmy Bell, who's a former Ohio State Buckeye. And this week, 3 days before the fight, we received word from Jimmy that he came down with the flu and he was not going to be able to participate in the fight. And so obviously, that put us in a mode of scrambling. And I got to tell you, it was kind of crazy. We had our whole team just come together. And I got to tell you, looking back, it's kind of cool the way that people just came together. And my living room looked like the trading floor of the New York Stock Exchange. I mean, everybody's flying around, making phone calls, sending out emails, trying to figure out how we were going to save this thing. And we weren't going to let it fall through the cracks. And so a couple weeks ago, I talked about in one of the messages about when you get hit with a big shot, like a blindside shot that you're not expecting.
One of the guys that was training me taught me basically how to respond when you're in a fight and you get hit with a big shot. All right, check this out.
Mike wanted me to experience what it would be like to take a big shot in a fight.
This little drill is one of my favorite ones to do to people when they're first starting out, without actually hitting him really hard in the head and giving him a little bit of brain damage, in order to simulate your body not working and still having to function when you know it's not functioning right. I'm going to have him spin in place for about 30 seconds till he's completely disoriented.
He's like, I want you to spin around as many times and as quickly as you can in 30 seconds. 30 seconds doesn't seem like a long time until you spin around as fast as you can for 30 seconds.
And then I'm going to have him throw left, right, left, right, left, right as fast as he can, as many times as he can, while he's trying to keep his feet underneath him. You'll start to see why boxers start stumbling around a lot after they've been hit. This actually might be kind of funny because sometimes guys go flopping all over the place. It's pretty comical. I just got to watch it that I don't get hit, though, because sometimes the punches go kind of wide. So,
I mean, I was completely disoriented. I didn't know which way was up, which way was down. I think he had to like tap me on the shoulder for me to even know where he was. Everything was spinning so quickly.
You couldn't even see me. Don't puke right there. My phone's right there.
I was totally disoriented. And so Mike says to me, he says, look, man, we're going to do this again. He said, you got really mentally lazy right there. He said, your mind was all over the place. He said, your feet came together and you almost fell over without me even touching you. He said, I want you to turn around. I want you to get a solid base underneath you. I want you to sink your butt, and I want you to throw basic punches. He goes, go to what you know. Go to what you've done thousands of times.
You've got to orientate yourself to go back to your basics, jab, straight right, and cover yourself, protect yourself.
I didn't think it was going to work. But we did it a second time, and I did it. I spun around 30 seconds, and he said, turn around. And as soon as I turned around, I just thought about keeping my mind focused, keeping myself focused, and staying as mentally tough as I could. Got a good base, sunk my butt, and went back to what I knew to do, throwing 1-2s, just throwing basic stuff. And when I went back to the basics and got a good base underneath me, I'm telling you, I got my bearings back within seconds, probably 5-6 seconds. All of a sudden, it all came back, and I wasn't dizzy anymore. And the really cool thing in this story is it's kind of telling itself is that we stopped ourselves in that moment. We said, wait a second, let's watch this video. This is what happens. You get hit with a big shot. Don't quit. Don't lose your head. Don't start getting wild. Let's go back to the fundamentals. Let's go back to the basics.
That moment right there was a life-changing moment for me. Because think about the life application there. So life hits you with a sucker punch.
Honestly, that's how I felt this week. That's how our whole fight team felt this week when this happened. And so we were all kind of trying to scramble around, and it got honestly sort of chaotic.
Go to your base to decide, I'm going to fight this thing in the right way. I just want to share 3 verses with you that for me, in my life, when I've been reeling, that has caused stability in me. Romans 8:28 is the first one, man. It says, and we know that God causes everything to work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose for them.
I mean, we were texting Romans 8:28 to each other. All things work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose. And it's just the coolest thing, the way that God is guiding this project. That it started out kind of this certain way, it's changed, which, man, isn't that life? I mean, you know, you think everything's going to go a certain way. You got this plan and you got all your ducks in a row and you've ordered all your product and you've done all this stuff. And then all of a sudden, boom, sudden change, the game's different. And you're like, well, what's going on? That's what God did with us this week, and that's where we're at. I was able to secure a new opponent, a guy by the name of Brian Brown. And Brian is an incredible fighter. It's going to be an amazing fight tonight. I can promise you that. With Jimmy Bell, you have a huge guy, a big physical guy, so you have to be concerned and aware of the fact that he's capable of a lot of power. With Brian's an experienced fighter, and so he's a big guy as well. He's 6'4", 245 pounds. So you have to be aware of the power, but you also have to be aware of his athletic ability, his quickness, and his experience. And so I'm going to have my hands full tonight. It's going to be a challenge, but I'm up for it. I've been working hard, preparing, and as I'm going to talk about throughout this message, I'm really at peace with whatever happens. I hope that those of you that are going to come tonight can just enjoy this thing. I hope you're not in there worried about, oh, what if he gets hit? I've thought about all that, and I'm ready to embrace all of that. And I'm just excited for all the work that's been done to be able to put into this challenge. Now, I do want to talk about a very real aspect of fights. And I'm not just talking about boxing matches. I'm talking about the fight you're in. I'm talking about the fight in your marriage, the fight in your relational life, the fight against temptation, against sins, against whatever it might be, your flesh, things that have you bound up, things that you just battle with. And when it comes to the fight, whatever it is, many times it causes incredible fear. In order for you to be able to overcome whatever is bullying you, whatever obstacles in your way, whatever it is that you're fighting, you're going to have to face fear head on. Now, I had a guy come up to me some time ago, and he said, man, he goes, it seems like you're not afraid of anything. And I know he was saying that as a compliment, but he said, man, I just seem to kind of be wrapped up in fear, and you don't seem like you're afraid of anything. How is that? And I was quick to tell him that is not true. I do have fears. There are things that I'm afraid of. But what I've learned, and what I've learned through God's word, is to be afraid of the right things. I said to this guy, I said, man, you and I are both afraid. I'm just afraid of different things than you are. Many people live with this debilitating fear of failure because they've either incorrectly defined failure or they've not defined it at all. And so now it's this nebulous thing that's just sort of out there bullying them. And so they kind of feel like a failure, but they're not sure why. There's a huge difference between losing and failing. Don't be afraid of losing. Be afraid of failing. Losing happens all the time. Don't be afraid to lose. If you're living your life afraid of losing, and you think, if I lose, I'm a failure. If I lose, I'm a loser. You completely don't understand what losing and failing really is. For me, one of the things that's caused me to have incredible peace in this whole journey, and really in my life in general, is that I have clearly defined what failing and succeeding is for me. For me, I have really 2 big areas of my life, and one deals with my relationship with God. The second is my relationship with people. 2 areas that I want to share with you that for me means success or failure, regardless of my wins and losses, regardless of whether the world sees me as successful or I build up, whatever type of thing that I want to win. Regardless of that, what I've realized is that if I define success according to God's word, according to the way that I should define it, all of the fear of losing, it just fades away completely. The first area that I've defined for success and winning for myself is in my relationship with God, and it's this: am I living by faith and walking in obedience? Am I living by faith and walking in obedience? In Hebrews 11:6, it says, without faith, it's impossible to please God. Now, we've been building this whole series on Hebrews chapter 12. And in the introduction to the series, I brought up some verses in Hebrews 11 that I just want to real quick flip back to and show you. In Hebrews 11, it talks all about faith. It says, man, by faith this person did this, by faith that person did that. Then it comes to Hebrews 11, verse 33, and it says, by faith these people overthrew kingdoms, ruled with justice, and received what God had promised them. They shut the mouths of lions, quenched the flames of fire, and escaped death from the edge of the sword. Their weaknesses was turned into strength. They became strong in battle and put whole armies to flight. Women received their loved ones back again from the dead. And so right there, I mean, we got this incredible picture of what a win looks like. And then it keeps going in Hebrews 11, and it says, but others were tortured, refusing to turn from God in order to be set free. They placed their hope in a better life after resurrection. Some were jeered at. Their backs were cut open with whips. Others were chained in prison. Some died by stoning. Some were sawed in half. Others were killed with the sword. Some went on wearing skins of sheep and goat, destitute and oppressed, mistreated. They were too good for this world, wandering over deserts and mountains, hiding in caves and holes in the ground. And the crystallizing verse of Hebrews 11 is Hebrews 11:6 that says, without faith, it's impossible to please God. So let's just think about this. Because if we're going to face this fear head on, what we have to think about really is this question is, what are you really afraid of? Like, what is really so scary? Is it losing? Are you afraid of being a loser? Are you afraid of failing at something? Are you afraid of what you might lose? I mean, start with this and look and realize, first of all, what God wants from you is not a whole bunch of trophies. God is not looking for you to make it in the magazine. That's not what he's asking of you. What God is asking of you, first of all, is to walk in faith. Will you do that? Faith, the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. I can't see it. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to trust in God. I'm going to walk by faith. And that, first of all, if you just do that, that's a win right there. That's success. That's success. In other words, in Hebrews 11:6, it says that if you walk by faith, you please God. So if you please God and you don't win, have you lost? No. You've absolutely succeeded. So the first part is walking by faith. The second is living in obedience. Look, we don't have control of much of anything, I've been working so hard for this fight, preparing myself, but I don't know what's going to happen tonight. I don't know what's going to happen. Anything could happen. I don't have control of that. I'm going to go in and do my very best, but the outcomes, I don't know. I don't know what your stocks are going to do. I don't know what the economy is going to do. I don't know what the government's going to do. I don't know what the business world's going to do. I don't know what our health is going to be like in a year. We don't know. And when it comes to those kind of things, if we define ourselves and define our win based upon just outcomes, that's crazy. We define wins and success based upon obedience. If I obey what God has told me to do, God told me to step out in faith. He told me to do this thing. He told me to stay in there. When everybody was telling me to bail, I stayed in. When everybody was telling me to do one thing, I did the other. When the whole company was pressuring me to do this, I didn't. Obedience. You walk in faith, you walk in obedience, and you are victorious, regardless of what the world says. Think about this. Hebrews 12 says this about Jesus. It says that Jesus is the champion who initiates and perfects our faith. It says, because of the joy awaiting him, he endured the cross, disregarding its shame. Now he is seated in the place of honor beside God's throne. Think of all the hostility he endured from sinful people. Then you won't become weary and give up. After all, you've not given your lives in your struggle against sin. Think about this. By the world's definition, Jesus lost. By the world's definition, Jesus got up and did all these miracles and did all this teaching, and he made all these promises that, man, you can tear down this temple and I'll rebuild it in 3 days. And he made all these promises. And then all these people that heard him talk the talk, it looked like when he stood up in front of the government and he was dragged to the cross and he was beaten with whips and he endured this whole thing, what it looked like is he was on his way to a loss. And then they watched him crucified, nailed to the cross. By the world's definition, Jesus lost. Was Jesus a loser? Absolutely not. Jesus walked by faith. Jesus was obedient to the purpose that God called him to. And ultimately, he received victory. A handful of people saw that victory. Some people saw the risen Christ. The majority of the people, they didn't. They concluded that Jesus lost. You know who else was a loser by the world standard? The Apostle Paul, the guy who wrote 2/3 of the New Testament. Spent most of his life in prison. What kind of spiritual giant keeps getting locked up in prison? What kind of guy who does these miracles can't even keep himself out of jail? Ultimately, the Apostle Paul died not in a retirement home, not in a beach house, in a dungeon. And in fact, in the last book that the Apostle Paul wrote, 2 Timothy chapter 4, in the last chapter of the last book, this loser by the world standard said this: I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have remained, look at this word, faithful. And now the prize awaits me, the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will give me on the day of his return. And this prize is not just for me, but for all who are eager and look forward to his returning. That's success. Don't be afraid of losing. Be afraid of failing. Be afraid of the right things. Failing is not walking by faith, not walking in obedience, quitting on what God's called you to do. Success is saying, I'm going to fight the good fight. I'm going to keep the faith. I'm going to finish the race. I'm going to stay faithful to what God has called me to. Let me tell you something. When you begin to look at life through that lens, you begin to define winning and losing, succeeding and failing in those terms, it is so freeing. Because when things start going crazy around you, or the world begins to look down their nose at you, or you begin to become less successful, or you don't attain all the things you thought or hoped you would, it anchors you in a place of safety, knowing that the win is not dependent upon you or by your circumstances, but on things that you can control. Don't define your success on things you can't control. If you define it on what you can control, walk by faith, live in obedience, the fear of failing, the fear of losing, gone. The second thing I want to talk about that's brought incredible freedom to me in this process and really to my life as a whole is kind of the second area of defining winning or defining success. And that's the second part, which is relationship with people. And this is what I believe is success for me with relationship with people, is that I want the people that know me the best to respect me the most. Now, when it comes to this fight, one of the things that is scary, okay, is the fact that we've publicized this. I'm going to be going into a ring and boxing an experienced fighter. I'm going to be doing something I've never done before. I've never boxed. I've never done this. I'm going to do something for the first time, which doing anything for the first time publicly is unnerving, okay? But I'm going to do that. in front of a group of people, and we're going to have cameras everywhere, not to mention your iPhones and all this stuff and social media, and we've been pumping it up. So what if I go in there and get knocked out? What if I go in there and, man, this crazy shot, and it's just a YouTube phenomenon, just just me just getting, and now the headline is pastor gets knocked out like an idiot, and it's all over the internet, and okay, so here's these things that you just can't help but think about, okay? And normally those sorts of things would cause fear. In this process, I got to tell you, I'm not afraid about that. I am not afraid about that. I know it could happen. It absolutely could happen. And if it does, I'm at peace with that. And here's why. In this process, one of the things that God has taught me is that it's a lot more important to earn the respect of the people in your corner than it is to earn the respect of the people in the crowd. A lot of people live their lives trying to make the crowd fall in love with them, trying to impress the crowd, trying to make the crowd respect them, instead of focusing on who is in your corner. Who has God put in your corner? I want the people that know me the best to respect me the most. And I understand that in this process, you know what? There may be some people along this journey that are sitting from afar and they're spectators, and they're going, yeah, man, he looks stupid. Oh, he embarrassed himself. When you live your life for the purposes of God, and you give your very best, and you walk by obedience, you live by faith, and you earn the respect of the people that know you the best, respect you the most, what would you ever have to be embarrassed about? There's nothing to be embarrassed about giving everything you have. Losing doesn't make you a loser. Losing is nothing to fear. And so I honestly, I couldn't be less worried about what some random people in the crowd are going to think. Many of you are in my corner. You've encouraged me. You've come alongside me. You've built me up. You said, man, thanks for doing this. And there's so many people that are being helped. I'm getting emails all the time coming in about this project and the way that people are being inspired. And if you're on social media, you're seeing the things that are happening. I'm telling you, so much more is going to come out of this, so much more. By the time we release this documentary and the way that this is going to get people's attention and then point them to Hebrews 12, point them to the good news of the gospel, God's doing an amazing thing with this. So a number of you are in my corner with this. And I got to just say, the respect and your love is so much more important than just some random person. Let me just ask you, have you found yourself being debilitated or living in fear that, these people in your world, hey, what are they going to think? What are they going to think? What are they going to think? Who cares? Who cares? What about the people in your corner? What kind of tragedy would it be for somebody to spend their whole life trying to impress coworkers or people that really aren't even for you, when the family and the people that God has put in your path for you to lead and for you to be responsible for don't respect you? To me, that's so much more important. My family, my church family, the people around me, the people that God has put in my corner. The other night, I came home from a meeting, and I've ordered all this boxing equipment for this fight. So I've ordered special gloves and my shorts, my trunks, and my headgear, and all this stuff. And so it all came in the mail. So I get home at night, I walk in the door, and sitting on our coffee table is a box with all my fight gear in it. And then on top of that was a letter that was just sitting there. And I'm thinking, I wonder what this is. So before I opened up the fight gear, I opened up the letter and I began to read it. And it was a letter from my wife. And I want to read it to you. The letter says, "Dear Greg, I wanted to take a minute and tell you how incredibly proud I am of you. I know this idea was burning in your heart a long time ago, and it took guts, patience, and hard work to make it come to fruition. Now here you are, with the fight just a couple of weeks away. We're already seeing the anticipation building in our church, community, and far beyond, reaching the people we don't even know about yet. I can't even wrap my brain around what God will do with this. I'm proud of you because You never back down from a fight. Sometimes that's hard for me to handle because I'm not naturally as inclined toward it as you are. But the truth is, God wired you that way, and he gave you all the other character and personality qualities you need to make that an asset. That quality by itself, without God's guidance, could be reckless and selfish. But over nearly 10 years we've been married, I've watched you grow, mature, and hone that drive to fight into something that inspires people. You truly are iron that sharpens iron. Whatever happens in that ring, I'm at peace. My nerves are less every day. And more than anything, I'm just overcome with admiration, respect, and pride in you. You're prepared in every way, and I can't wait to see how all the pieces that you and I have been puzzling over the last 6 months or so come together and make sense in a way that we never saw coming. I truly believe this fight is the launch pad for the next set of things that God has for you and us to do. Love you with all my heart. Shaylin. What do I have to be afraid of? Why would I be afraid of getting hit with a punch? Why would I be afraid of looking stupid on camera? I'm not fighting just for the crowd. I'm fighting for the people in my corner, the respect of the people in my corner, and God's put people in your corner. And God's put a mandate before you. And for some of you, it's to get in this ring and fight. And it's not a physical fight like what I'm going to do. It's an emotional, it's a spiritual, it's a relational. What are you so afraid of? Will you define your fear? Will you define what failing is, what winning is, what losing is? And understand that, you know what, even if you get in that ring with your opponent and you lose, you've not failed. If you've walked by faith and you've walked in obedience, then you win. I encourage you, come out of the stands, get in the ring, and fight whatever opponent is in front of you without fear. Because you have the opportunity to fight not just for the champion, but with Jesus the champion. Let's fight.